Hello there, lovely folks of YouTube. Ren here. It is a very lovely May day. It was not so lovely a few days ago. It was in the 90s. I was kind of dying. It's okay. We're better now. It's going to rain soon. Everything will be right. But I just wanted to let you know that it being monstrous is why the grass in my yard is like knee-high and the weeds are everywhere because it's been too damn hot to go outside. But now that it's cooler, and I can be out here, we're going to talk about a little plant. So this little guy right here next to me, lovely little plant, a little aggressive, you know, but plants in the mint family tend to be that way. So this is lemon balm, Latin name would be Melissa officinalis. It is in that Lamiaceae, which is the mint family. Very widely grown herb, but very easy to grow herb. Now, this herb does very closely resemble all the other mints, so it has that kind of, you know, leaf shape that looks very similar to like a spearmint or a peppermint. It has the square stems, it has those two-lipped Lamiaceae flowers that it will make. What really sets this apart, in the way that I always tell this apart from my other plants, is the smell. Lemon balm has that very distinctive sort of lemony fragrance to it, unlike the other mints. Very unique in the mint family for that. So this is a plant that's native to Europe and Central Asia. Has a lot of connections with beekeeping. So the name Melissa actually means bee or honey in Greek. Definitely also some Latin as well, because I know that in Italian the name for the word that they use for honey is meli. So they don't use that word, they use ape for bee, but meli is honey. So Melissa, honey, bees, very, you know, and of course this plant is named for bees. It's fairly unobtrusive in the flowers. They're really, really tiny. I don't have any flowers on it yet. I'm getting some buds, which means I need to harvest this plant soon. But the flowers are fairly unobtrusive. They're not really grown for its flowers. It's grown for the foliage. The essential oil is actually derived from the flowers of this plant though. So those little teeny tiny flowers, the reason that that essential oil is so expensive is because it makes little teeny tiny flowers and there's not a lot. So it's really hard to get the essential oil from this plant, which is one of the reasons why this essential oil is so expensive compared to some of the other plants, because they really just get the essential oil from the flowers and there's not a lot of them and they're tiny and yeah. But those flowers are absolutely jam-packed full of nectar. Really good plant for bees because of that, which is one of the reasons why it was so interrelated with bees and beekeeping. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the magical associations part when we talk about those. So this plant does grow in zones 3 to 7. Can grow in part shade, as you may notice. I do have it in a shady spot here, which does help to keep this a little bit better under control. It gets a little unruly when it gets more sun. This plant is still very unruly, don't get me wrong. Lemon balm is different from the other mints. Most of the mints spread by runners, like the spearmints, peppermints, they have those stems that kind of grow horizontally along the ground and the new plants will pop up for that. Lemon balm doesn't do that. It will kind of spread a little bit from its spot that it's in. Not as much as the other mints though. The main way that it spreads and propagates is through seeds. It makes thousands of teeny tiny little seeds that are like about the size of a grain of sand, and they just scatter everywhere with the wind. So if you plant one lemon balm and it goes to seed, next year you'll have at least 20. You can't see it here, like there's another lemon balm right here I'm sitting on. There's several under my deck over here. I have lemon balm on my compost. I have lemon balm on the other side of my house. Like, it's everywhere. My mom calls this plant a thug, and I feel it's a very appropriate descriptor for how this plant spreads. So be prepared. If you have a lemon balm plant, next year you'll have a lot of lemon balm plants and you'll be pulling it up everywhere, which is fine because, you know, it's just more lemon balm to harvest, whatever, you know. So similarly to basil, this is a plant that's best to harvest before it flowers. After it flowers, the leaves get more of a bitter quality to them and they're not as appealing. So definitely, like right now, where I can just see there's a couple little teeny tiny spots where I can see the flower buds are going to start to form. I'm actually going to harvest this plant right after I finish this video. It will of course pop back up just like basil. Wherever you cut it, you know, you can see there's the little basil leaves there. It will grow 2 stems where I cut the 1 stem, as long as you don't cut it too far down. So very, you know, very amenable to harvesting. Easy, easy, easy plant. Now this plant eventually will get up to 24 to 36 inches tall in the right conditions, usually more in the sun than mine. This is about as tall as mine gets here in the shade. Still plenty big, you know. I still get what I need. Okay, squirrel, we get it. I don't know if you can hear that squirrel chattering at me. So this is a plant that the dried leaves don't have quite as much fragrance as the fresh. So if you're going to use it for tea, if you can, it's best to use it while it's fresh, but you can still use the dried. I mean, I use the dried in the wintertime. It's fine. It's just not quite as scrumptious as the fresh stuff is. So similar to the basil, you know, basil is really good when it's fresh, and when it's dried, you can still use it. It's still good. It's still basil, but oh my gosh, the comparison between the fresh and dried, there's just, it's out of this world. So, so just keep that in mind. If you do have a lemon balm plant, try to use it fresh when you can, because it's so much better. So, magically, so let's talk about that. This plant is associated with Venus and the moon, traditionally. It is sometimes considered to be sacred to, depending on what source you're looking at, some will say Artemis or Diana, and some will say Aphrodite. Okay. We do know that Aphrodite had sacred beekeepers that would keep this plant near the beehives at the temple. So, and sometimes those priestesses were actually called Melissae, bees. So, and they would, you know, they would plant this plant next to the beehives. So, a lot of association between this plant and bees. A lot. Its use in attracting bees. We can see that as being good for attracting other good and sweet things into our life. So love and success, all of those things. It's a good attractive plant for that. So really good for anytime you want to bring something good in, lemon balm is a good option to bring in. So, and keeping it there too, because I love the smell. Lemon balm was also rubbed onto the hives of the bees in order to discourage them from swarming and make them want to stay. So yeah, keeping good things, bringing good things in, all of those things lemon balm is good for. This is also a really good herb for sort of calming the mind, okay? That's actually probably what I use it for the most. This is a really good anti-anxiety herb. It's really frequently used in a lot of tea blends that are used for like sort of like sleepy time kind of teas. I have found that the sedative properties of this plant are a little bit overrated. At least for me, it's not really a good plant for putting me to sleep, but it is a good plant for kind of bringing things kind of down a notch. You know, when my brain's running in 5th gear and I need to kind of bring it down into 3rd or 2nd gear, like this is a good plant for that. I personally have used this plant a lot when I was studying or preparing for a test when I was in school. So I would actually make a tea that had most commonly lemon balm, rosemary, and some other, you know, sort of awareness focusing kind of plants in it, in order to kind of bring that kind of calm, centered, like you got this kind of thing going into the test. So I found that it was really helpful for that. So really good, you know, sort of anti-anxiety, you know, just sort of centering plant. The other thing, of course, that traditionally this plant is used for, it was very commonly considered to be a cure-all. You see lemon balm in a lot of medieval recipes, medieval healing recipes, like for just about anything you can think of. So also can be added for healing magic. Again, and that's really, you know, sort of tying into that sort of bringing in good things, you know, bringing in healing is a good thing. So, yeah, definitely a really good use for this plant as well. So, I do love this plant. It is so aggressive. It's so aggressive in how it spreads. It just wants to be everywhere and all the time. but it's a lovely little plant. So if you have the space for it, may as well go for it. If you have a pot with a patio, even better, because then you can just keep it in one spot and it can't go anywhere. But yeah, so yeah, it's a really, really, really good plant to add to your magical arsenal. Really easy to grow, even in pots. You could probably even grow it indoors, honestly. I'm not the best expert for telling you what you can and can't grow indoors, because I don't grow a lot of stuff indoors if I can grow it outdoors. But I would imagine that a lot of the mint plants are very forgiving for growing anywhere, and you can probably grow this one indoors as well. So anyway, I hope this was informative as always. I hope this video finds you well, and I will see you again soon.